All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 27th Poudre Fire Authority Board meeting. Due to COVID-19, this PFA board meeting will be held virtually. Individuals who wish to comment regarding items scheduled on the agenda or wish to address the PFA board during public comment on items not specifically scheduled on the agenda, may use the Q&A option within the meeting found at the in the middle lower part of your screen. Or you can send comments to publiccomment@poudre-fire.org. That's publiccomment@poudre-fire.org. Your comments and questions will be read by a moderator and answered by the board. So with that, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would like to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for that. And now there is an opportunity for us to receive any public comment that may have come in through email or questions or anything else. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment?
And I have nothing in the email and nothing in the Q&A at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. And then we will, looking for Darren here. Hey, we'll go ahead and proceed with our discussion items or items of business related. First of all, any questions, comments regarding the planning calendar that is in your packet?
I suggest we add in there the selection of the chief. That little timeline, or one of the timelines.
Okay. Yeah, 2021. Yeah, it might be good to at least have that. Dave, would that be just the
Well, probably
the date that we would plan on having that selection made? Is that probably most appropriate, I assume?
Well, I think that's certainly one, but maybe other milestones as well.
Okay.
Maybe when the interviews are conducted, et cetera.
All right, kind of a little bit more of the process articulated in our calendar.
Although those might be separate meetings, right? I mean,
They might be, yeah.
I don't
Could
know.
I suggest that we put chief hiring update on each slot up until February
Yeah, that's a good idea.
or
Yeah.
March?
Do it that way, yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. Anything, any other additions or comments about the planning calendar? Okay, if not, we will ask for those additions as far as just a routine update for each meeting on the chief hiring process. On the next item is our consent agenda. And actually, Darren, it looks like maybe Darren has joined us because, I don't know if there are questions, comments in visiting with the chief. I don't know if the item number 5 on the appropriation of reserve for contingency funds for the Emergency Operations Center. This is a combination of city funding, PFA funding, and CARES funding. Darren, are there comments that you would like to make relative to the Emergency Operations Center?
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I'm late, everyone. I apologize. I'll be at my desktop probably within about 10 minutes. No, Ken, I think the collaboration has been fabulous between the Poudre Fire Authority and Fort Collins Police and Jim Burns' Office of Emergency Management. I'm happy to answer any questions, but no, I have vetted this proposal. I think it makes sense, and I'll leave it at that, Ken, unless there's questions for me.
And
Okay.
Ken, I did not get a hold of Jim Byrne to get him in our meeting today. But I think Darren can probably help us if the board has any of those questions about any more details about the plan.
Happy to, or happy to pull Jim in as well if that's necessary.
Okay.
Hey, Darren, I had a question that I raised yesterday, and I'm sure you can clear it up. We make sure we've got a reasonable amount of money to do that job. It's $300,000 sounded like a lot to me. Tom explained a lot about the electronics and all the wiring and everything that has to go on. So, but what's your take on the cost? Are we doing it the most economical way possible?
Well, Dave, I had those same questions. I thought the costs seem very high as well. I have spoken with Jim about it. I've more, tried to emphasize reducing those costs, and I think we're at a point where he's got a good plan, and the costs are in line. Again, Dave, if that is a concern, probably in the next few minutes, I could probably hunt down Jim and have him speak specifically to those. But that was exactly my line of thinking when I first saw some of the proposals. The numbers have changed a little bit, but based on what I've been told, I'm comfortable that it's money well spent. It's not a one-off. These will be dollars that'll be a sunk cost and not add value. I think the beautiful thing about this is we can leverage some resources that'll, I think, serve us for many years. So that's I'm confident in that, Dave. Hope that helps.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
The other thing I would add to that is, a total cost of 300,000 to me, and when you look in arrears to the 20-some years that we have had the EOC, the only things we've done there is updated computers and stuff. So we haven't spent a lot of capital money on keeping our EOC up to date. And frankly, as I told the district board yesterday, we rarely use that EOC because of its location and its remoteness out on Vine. We moved our COVID when we ran an EOC, an in-person EOC on COVID. That was at utilities when we had the floods in 2013. That was at utilities. We ran about the only thing since I've been chief in 9.5 years that we've run out there is a couple of wildfires, and everything else has been either downtown in District 1, but we've done things like New West Fest or Brewfest, or at our regular boardroom at 102 Remington, which those are not EOCs. And EOCs do require some specific wiring for security, specific software stuff, and computers for security. But this would also, my understanding, have offices off of the EOC to where our emergency managers have a direct connection to that and can stand that thing up in a very little time. And as I said in the AIS, is when we get through COVID, one of the biggest things we would use this for, hopefully we're not going to have COVID and wildfires like this for a long time, but when we get back to Brewfest and New West Fest and Cinco de Mayo and St. Patrick's Day and all those festivities that we have in Old Town, it gives a place to run the emergency and security operations for those events in a central location that's close to all the city departments, as well as police and PFA. So I think, and it also, for the investment that we're making, it gives us back for actually for $100,000. If you look at the space that we're going to get back, it's a pretty good investment for us as well, as we grow, our EMS division's growing, and things that we need to provide in training. So I think overall, I think it has a lot of value.
Hey, you know what might be interesting in looking at that amount is just maybe a follow-up memo, maybe from Jim on kind of the breakdown of those amounts, and the various amounts of that 300,000, what's going where. And maybe that would be helpful information for the board to have. Kristen?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a great location. I've been out to where we've done that at utilities, and I don't think that that's the best location either. So I think the proximity between, being close to Old Town and close to both the fire offices and City Hall is a really good idea. I'm wondering if Darren can remind us with the $100,000 from the city portion, not this is a city meeting, but is that in this, will that be in the coming year's budget, or is that part of this year's budget? And is council, I guess, I'm not sure where if this was, money that we had planned to use in this way all the time, or if you could just give a little detail about that, that would be great.
Darren, are you there? Maybe he's in between.
He might be.
I'm sorry, I didn't, I hit the wrong unmute button. Sorry about that. Can you hear me, Ken?
Yeah.
What I was saying, Kristen, and to the board, Jim really should be in this meeting, and I apologize that I didn't ask to have him here. Kristen, I recall that it's unspent reserve out of the fund, but let me confirm that right away, okay? Right away, I can do that, but I think it's unspent revenue or unspent monies that are in that fund, but I need to confirm that.
Okay, that's what I was probably thinking that was likely, but thanks.
All right.
Darren, the city's providing the space, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Well,
Dave, did you hear me?
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great move as far as just the location and that sort of thing. So certainly would agree with Kristen on that. All right. If there's no other questions there or questions or comments on any of the other consent agenda items, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Ken, I do have a question on the thermal imaging.
Okay.
Tom, I just wanted to understand what was wrong with the existing ones, and what are you going to do with the existing thermal imagers?
I will defer that to Chief Vanderbilt. Chief Andy.
Morning, everybody.
More, Benny?
They're up for replacement, and these new ones just give us a lot more options to work with. They're smaller, and by recommendation of our committee that they're just time to replace them. So the technologies that are coming in the new thermal imagers is just getting better and better. So trying to keep up with that also.
So what do we do with the existing ones? Can you trade them in, or
I
are they?
believe we can. I'll make one call while I'm waiting, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can on that.
Okay,
And
just
Dave,
curious.
this is one of those reserve funds that we've built rather than waiting for year-end monies,
Right.
and because we know that these are going to, they have a useful life, and part of the problem with TICs, as they're called, thermal imaging cameras, is that the technology advances, and trying to keep up with the technology. We have become, from being somebody that watched these come onto the scene when one was, I remember we got our first one, it was $25,000 for one, and it mounted on a helmet, and it was just a monstrosity thing. And as the technology is improving, it gives our firefighters more flexibility, and it has definitely become a firefighter safety issue. They can read temperatures. It gives precise readings of temperatures at different levels in the room, so they can determine if things are going to turn into some kind of safety issue really fast. So trying to stay on top of that technology is part of also why we're trading those or changing those out. And we'll as soon as Chief Vandy has an answer on what we do with our old ones, we'll let you know.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm comfortable going ahead and making a motion to approve the consent agenda. And I think as far as the EOC is concerned, questions, if we just get some feedback on that later on. But I'm certainly comfortable making a motion for approval on the consent.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consented agenda items 2, 3, 4, and 5. Any additional questions or discussions? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
no. And then that's so ordered. Okay, and that brings us to our 2 discussion items. The first one is the 2020 accreditation site visit and process update. This is more of a report and presentation, and I think Ron's going to share that information. So take it away.
Ron, I'll introduce Ron Sims. Ron Sims, our planning and analysis chief, as you know, and the work that he's done along with Haley Spurrier and Laura Robinson has just been phenomenal on continuous improvement. Yeah, we set out our goal for accreditation was never to just be focused on winning the prize. It's been focused on our continuous improvement efforts and how we do that. We had a very successful site visit that actually was virtual starting back in March. I believe that we had several meetings on Zoom, and he'll address that. I'm not going to steal any of his thunder to let him update you on the good report we had and the good site visit and what the I will say this, the recommendations are in great alignment with things we're trying to do here. And that's why we do this, is to find those recommendations to help us improve. So Ron, if you'd like to take over, I'd appreciate it.
Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, this is a pretty good news item and a culmination of really 5 more years of work to get us to this point. I just want to give kudos to Chief DeMint for his vision. And I appreciate him recognizing the team that has been built in the planning office. Haley Spurrier, data analyst, who was the first person that I was able to speak accreditation language with back in 2011. And then our GIS analyst, Laura Robinson, who came to us from Tualatin Valley. And I can tell you, I have a lot of confidence in this position, being able to turn to those two and say, for answers, we need answers. How can you help us out? And they're like, yeah, we got it. And they see the work. So it's fantastic. But Chief DeMint really in 2011 for the Poudre Fire Authority to be accredited. And just as a reminder, accreditation is not just, going in an application. It's actually a way of doing business. And really weave it into the fabric of your organization. And as Chief said, continuous improvement is something that you always strive for. As Chief said, we did, and we will get a recommendation from our peer team for accreditation, but they also have 20 to 25 recommendations for us to continue improving. So just because you're accredited doesn't mean you're there. And I wrote that we've arrived. I didn't use Chief's Nike phrase because I know you've all heard him say that before. I figured I'll wait for him to retire before I steal that from him. 3 times, right, Chief? Sorry, I've got a lot of energy this morning. So, process and that business plan is you have to have a strategic plan. The 2018-2023 strategic plan that our board adopted, you adopted in 2017. That laid the foundation for us continuing on. We've always had a strategic plan since 1981. You have a community risk assessment, standards of cover. Our very first one was done for accreditation in 2014, and we continue to improve that, develop it, study our areas. We'll be making a presentation to you next month on items from our standard of cover, how we cover our system, you know, that we need to improve. That was adopted again by you, the board, in March of this year. And then every program manager, you know, and organization like Chief Dement writes on governance, we have to write what's called a self-assessment manual that has 4 components to it. And it's really this is how we do it, this is how well it's working, and this is our plan. And then you got to show references or exhibits to prove that you're doing what you're doing. And this is where really you could do all this without the accreditation process, but you don't get the review. What CIPSE and the Commission on Fire Accreditation International does is they assign you a peer team, and we were assigned a peer team in February of this year. Documents, our 3 core documents were supposed to be uploaded by the end of March. We had that completed. All of our program managers worked tirelessly to get their work done prior to March. April, the August commission hearings were canceled because of COVID. So we got deep into COVID, but we were one of the only organizations that had our documents loaded in March. They gave an extension until September, and had I known that, I wouldn't have worked so hard in February and March along with Haley and all of our program managers, but we had it done. So over that time period from really May to September, like Chief said, we had 12 different Zoom meetings using this technology to really start the process for our peer assessors, our peer evaluators, to start getting into what we've written, reading our documents, looking at our references, and kind of peeling back the layers of the onion to see who the Poudre Fire Authority is. And are we credible? Do we meet the core competencies of things that a credible fire department should have in place? Again, the site visit occurred October 4th. We finally got to a place where we kind of had a break, right? In the COVID pandemic, the team wanted to be very careful with COVID, as well as we wanted to be very careful with COVID. The team leader, actually, he and I wrote a COVID protocol so that we could follow that, getting them here. Did a very safe but low key site visit, and they came in on October 5th through the 7th. They did some station visits. They did go look at our fleet maintenance shop. They went out to training, and just, they come in and they interview program managers. They look for more documentation to say what it is that you're doing. They gave us we had a lot of hard questions. Had a lot of great discussions. Every afternoon after the meeting, the chief and I would be briefed by the team leader. And I will tell you again, kudos to Chief Dement for, it's great to sit next to a leader of an organization and asking and looking at the peer team leader and saying, give us more. We want the recommendations. We want to be better. There are some folks out there that would have the tendency to want to argue that we have everything figured out. And I say this only because we're getting ready to maybe hire a new chief. And I surely hope, and I think it will be, I'm going to get on a little bit of, but I hope that this process and that kind of character is something that this board is looking for in hiring a new chief. And I'm not lecturing. I know you all have that in your minds and your hearts, but it's critical for us to continue to move forward as an organization. Again, they also met with leaders. They met with Mike DiTullio as the board chair and representing the district. And they met with Darren Atterbury as kind of the city manager of Fort Collins and representing the city a little bit. They met with leadership of Local 1945. Gary West, our team leader, met with them. He stayed until about 8 o'clock in the evening meeting with them. So they kind of, again, they turned over every leaf. And they left and they gave us a really great outbrief. They're going to have recommendations. We don't have them yet that we'll share with you. But they did say that one of the things that I thought was really poignant was they said, if not Poudre Fire, if Poudre Fire Authority isn't able to be accredited, then who is? They were very impressed with our programs, with how our program managers have taken this up and how this really is being woven into the organization. Granted, there are a lot of folks from Local 1945 leadership to program managers to our SLT to you, the board, that really care about the service we provide to this community. And I think it was very evident in this site visit. So that's I mean, that's a huge success. You take a breath and you move on. Continuing to get work with the team lead to get final documentation done. That recommendation will be made, and we're looking at going before the commission in March. The commission is actually who votes on whether or not you will be accredited. The peer team makes a recommendation. We'll go before the commission in March. And I just found out yesterday that conference, sorry, Chief and Darren, that conference will be virtual. It will not be in Orlando. And the hearings will probably be virtual as well. So moving forward, preparing, as soon as we get those recommendations, we will put them before the board, because we'll develop a work plan with some SMART goals on how we're going to get those achieved. And yeah, we'll our way for another 5 years of continuous improvement. So thanks for giving me the time to share and really celebrate. Thank you to the board for supporting us in trying to achieve excellence. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much for that report. And I'd like to follow up with Chief West, who did this, is probably has a reputation of one of the toughest team leads of all the accreditation team leaders for site visits, and has had many, many, many site visits. And to have him tell you that you're in the 95th percentile of departments around the country, and what they saw at our training center and how they reported that back with our, not just the infrastructure and the campus, but the programs that we're doing, as well as our fleet maintenance. They were finding best practices that they want to share with other departments. And it makes you very proud. And also, we know we've been through some rough times with some labor management issues over the past few months, and they went into the stations and said our people are what we say they are. When we talk about what they are on the wall, when we talk about our strive for our culture and stuff, they were impressed with what they saw in the stations, with people throughout the organization, and it makes you really proud when what we're trying to accomplish is continuous improvement. And then what makes me probably the happiest of everything from that site visit were the results of the recommendations that they have. They're so in line with where we're wanting to go with this organization in the world in safety and EMS. And we will get, when they get those done, we're still waiting for them to stratify and codify those and pass those on. Just like last time, we took those and turned them into SMART goals just like that, and started. And there were a couple last time that we said, no, we're not going to do that. Kind of like, I think one of them comes to the top of the head was they wanted us to send our investigators through the police academy. And we said that it was our choice not to do that. And so we still have those options, but we will get that back to the board as soon as we get those recommendations, so we can start that journey. That's what's important. That's what's important to this organization, is continuous improvement. It always has been. I think it always will be. So, Ron, to you and your team, thank you so much for guiding us, not to get the prize, but to keep on that track of continuous improvement.
All right. Hey, well, thank you, Ron, for the report. Thank you, Chief, for those follow-up comments. I think those were really helpful. Questions or comments related to the report on the accreditation process for the site visit?
Just want to convey my thanks to Ron and Tom and everybody involved. I think that this is, I'm very proud that that you're doing this work, and I think that it's, I think it's very, like Chief says, it's not about the prize. It's about we're trying to get better all the time, and I appreciate that curiosity and that spirit of wanting to get better, and not what can we do to get better versus sort of like we're already there. And I think you're right, Chief Sims, that we want to seek that same leadership out in our new chief. And so I guess, thinking about the process, like I went to Atlanta in 2015, and I think that that's what was when we first. I was pretty. I was a greenhorn then for sure, but you know, and that was such an interesting experience to be part of, and I didn't know a lot about the process when I went out there, and it was very impressive, and it was really exciting, you know, when we received that accreditation for the first time. So thank you for just kind of staying with it and just always having that there again, that spirit of wanting to do better. So I'm very pleased that, you know, that you all are doing such a great job, that, you know, we keep getting these awards. But I know there's a lot of hard work behind it. So just wanted to convey my thanks.
All right.
I second that.
All
Well
right.
said, Kristen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think what Ron, you know, addressed in terms of looking at the future, that concept of commitment to continuous improvement is an important value. It should be part of the DNA of the PFA, and so so that is something I think we want to continue to see, you know, reflected in our leadership moving, you know, moving forward. You know, since this is just more of a report item, I assume we don't really need a motion on this item. Is that correct? Or do we need a motion to just accept?
Oh,
the
that's
report?
correct. This is just a discussion item for
More of a staff report type thing.
yeah, and that we'll bring this back to we'll bring it back to the board when we have those recommendations.
Okay. The next item, yes,
And this is Darren. May I just say a word or two
sure.
about this? I apologize. Yeah, I want to just add to what Kristen has said as well. And as Dave said it eloquently, just ditto or second, but I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to this very quickly. And Kristen, I remember the Atlanta trip as well, and it was fabulous for a lot of different reasons. You know, I think it was Ron that mentioned that Chair DeTulio and I got to meet with the lead examiner, and all the things that Tom and Ron have said is exactly what he told us. He was very complimentary of the organization and Poudre Fire Authority, the strength of the brand in the industry of fire services and emergency services. I think what's most important here is that to just state how fortunate we are in Fort Collins in Northern Colorado to have the Poudre Fire Authority. Hundreds of organizations are accredited, not tens of thousands. We have, I think last I heard, around 18,000 cities in the United States. Hundreds are fire departments, several hundred fire departments are accredited, and the others are not. I have, eye doctors who are accredited, and hospitals who are accredited, and schools who are accredited, and grocery stores who are accredited. But you would think that fire departments would be across the United States. There would be a minimal, a requirement of accreditation, but it's not true. And that's part of the reason why I'm on the SIPSI board, is to try and drive accreditation or these journeys of excellence. So a couple things. One is, I want to say that separates us from most of the industry throughout the country, and frankly around the world. There's an international part of SIPSI as well, the Center for Public Safety Excellence, that's accrediting fire departments around the world. So PFA is in sort of rarefied space, and it's important for once in a while for us to just acknowledge that. And so I think now's the time. The other thing is just to meeting with the accreditation chair or team lead. Mike and I think both felt like what a privilege it is to be part of a organization in this way, and also the responsibility to make sure that regardless of who our chief is that brought us here, but continuing way beyond Chief DeMint as well in this journey, and way beyond Ron as well. I mean, these guys have been stalwart partners in all this and leaders. So I guess and I'm not sure who mentioned 95th percentile. He told me 97th percentile. I'm just saying. So somewhere there's a math error. But anyway, so thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. But I'm super proud, and yet And Tom, you should be super proud of this as well, Ron and others who've helped, Holger and the whole team. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And it's pretty sweet to be on the board, the SIPSI board as well, with the kind of reputation that PFA has. You all have really made me look good on that board as well in front of our national peers, and I'm really grateful for that. So thanks, Ken. I appreciate
All right.
it.
You bet.
Two facts here real quick, Ken.
Yeah,
I'm
Ron.
sorry, Board Chair. 280 accredited agencies in the US and Canada.
30,000 fire departments in the United States.
Wow.
11% of the US population is protected by a fire service that's accredited.
Wow. Interesting.
Percentage of the US population that has an accredited fire department and emergency services. So
Well, thank you for
Our
sharing
people.
that context and perspective. That's helpful. Hey, we're going to move on to item number 7. It kind of comprises the bulk of your packet in relationship to an update on employee rules and regulations. I mean, this is kind of a board policy document. I think in a moment, Janet's going to kick us off, but let me just kind of remind those that maybe are listening in, or if there are any public who are looking at our documents, the 7A is really kind of the staff report and overview section. 7B is kind of the red line version that shows the changes in the documents and updates. And then 7C is kind of the clean version with the proposed changes. So with that, I don't know if Chief, you want to set it up, or do we go directly to Janet?
I'll just say Janet and Ann have been working on this for some time, and we have met with Local 1945. There's been some changes because some of the things that were in rules and regs have gone into the collective bargaining agreement, and the collective bargaining agreement sometimes refers to rules and regs. But before I dive into deep of that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann and Janet to give you a report on and what action we need to take on that.
All right, Janet, take us away.
Good morning, board. It's wonderful to be here with you this morning. And the timing couldn't be better because this really is a piece of that continuous improvement journey and the process toward reviewing the existing practices that we have in place. So it fits perfectly with Chief Sims' presentation. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen. I do have just a very brief presentation to outline this item for you. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So as the chief mentioned, this is just an opportunity for the board to review the existing personnel rules and regulations. What I had hoped to do is just cover for you how this aligns with our strategic plan. What are the specific changes that we're recommending and why? And then what we're looking for from you today is some direction, either the opportunity for you to spend some more time with this document because it is quite lengthy. If you're in a position to approve those recommended changes, or if you need us to do some additional work on this document. So as I mentioned, this is aligned with the strategic plan and our opportunity to review services that are provided through the PFA. This fits into the accreditation process and was a part of the documents that we submitted in the accreditation review that we just went through. And then in addition to that, we are committed to fostering a culture where we have inclusion, diversity as key priorities for the PFA and work very hard to do so. In addition to that, this document, and it's a part of the employee governance package, if you will. So obviously we are bound by state, local, federal law. We do have the collective bargaining agreement with the Local 1945. And then this document is an umbrella under which additional policies that are more directed toward administration operations and specific procedures exist, but this is the overall framework for guidance for our staff. The recommended changes that you have before you really fall into two categories. So there are some substantive changes that are driven by changes in the federal and state law. There are changes that are recommended that are in alignment with the collective bargaining agreement that was approved by the board and ratified by the local. And then the intergovernmental agreement that exists between the city and the district. And then in addition to that, and a lot of what you see in the red line version is what I refer to as cleanup. And the intent with that was to reduce some redundancy and really make this a more readable document, one that could be easily understood. And we did eliminate some procedural references, allowing us to put those more into those operational directives and procedure documents. So specifically, what you see, some of the highlighted changes that are proposed include emphasizing the connection between safety sensitive positions for the purpose of drug testing. This comes through some legal recommendations and just watching some cases that are going through the court system related to drug testing. There is a significant addition actually to these that differentiates a probationary period for the purposes of classified employment for employees from an introductory period. I'm sorry, the other way around. Introductory period for the purposes of a classified appointment to the PFA, and a probationary period which may be associated with a promotion or other kind of activity in a job change with the PFA. And then we just highlighted some work that also falls into that continuous improvement category related to our performance review process, what historically has been referred to as performance review, just to highlight some of the changes that we're making in that area and really focusing on more of a development for our employees with that work. So as I mentioned, what we're looking for from the board is just an opportunity for you to review this and if needed, have additional time to do that, or if you're prepared to adopt these as they are recommended. And I'm here to answer any questions or provide any support.
All right. Well, thank you, Janet, for that, for that overview. My favorite is the reducing the, making the reducing redundancies and all that sort of stuff. I always think that's an improvement in any document like this. Hey, just a real question, and I was trying to think back. I've been on the PFA board on the list of the Fire Authority Board of Directors. Let's see, this is still 2020. It says 2020. When did I join? I know Dave was chair, then Kristen was chair. Now Tom is chair. So how do we determine who's, let me see, did we change officers in July? Is that right? I didn't know if that was supposed to be Dave or Kristen or when.
Yeah, I had a question about that too, because I don't think I was ever vice chair this year. I was chair. And so
yeah, that's what I thought.
And now Mike's chair. So, I mean,
yeah,
I don't.
2020. So I think it should be Kristen, shouldn't it? Kristen and then Mike?
Well,
I mean, if we're adopting it now, I mean, it probably should be Mike, but.
could I suggest that we just take names off of that? And I'm not sure why you put the names in there, but.
I appreciate this conversation, and I think what this is a reflection of is quite honestly the length of time that we've been working on this document.
Yeah.
The changes that have come in that period of time with our board. So I'm happy to make the change if that's the board direction, to just include those titles, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know, including the names is fine with me, as far as that, as far as that goes. I mean, it kind of gives a context of where we're at a point in history when this document was revised. And so, you know, so I think it's fine to include the, you know, list of the board of directors and the, you know, leadership staff at the time it was adopted. I think it gives some kind of a historic, you know, context, and just, you know, we just need to have it, you know, reflect accurately what it is as it's upon the date it's adopted here.
Well, do we have an obligation to review this? Is it every year or every 5 years? What's our review schedule?
David,
Oh, go ahead, Ann.
under accreditation, it is supposed to be every 3 years. But we should have done this last year. And then this year we have been in the process of it for much of the year, and we were really waiting for ratification of the contract, which you did last month. And so that's what our normal schedule should be every 3 years. And that this is one of our core competencies with the accreditation process. So having these updated and current, especially to state law and federal law, is one of our core competencies. So we were aiming to have it done before the accreditation site visit, but until the contract was ratified, we didn't feel it was right to make changes that reflected a contract that hadn't been adopted yet.
Sure. Well, I think with that kind of a schedule, it makes sense to just list the officers and not names, because 2 years out of the 3, it'll be out of date. I mean, it's almost like buying a new computer. It's out of date as soon as you buy it. So I think that I would suggest we just list officers, or if you want to put names on there, say, you know, give the date in 2020, you know, here are the officers. I would suggest we just, so you don't have to change that every time. I mean, what's the value of having the person's name on there anyway?
No, as I read it, and being so new to the PFA, I do appreciate just reflecting on who the board members were at the time that something was adopted. But, you know, I really think this is what the board's preference is. So yeah. I will completely.
You know, and I would, my view is kind of similar to, you know, to Janet's. You know, again, when I look at documents, you know, over time, I think it does help to have a little bit of historical context in terms of who was serving on the board at a particular time, and you know, so forth like that. And so, because yeah, I mean, I think without, you know, listing the names of the positions, I mean, otherwise you just have Poudre Authority Board of Directors, you'd have chair, vice chair, board members. I mean, it doesn't really tell you anything. Sure. And so, so I think there is value in terms of that, you know, list of individuals who are involved. I mean, you know, for example, even on the leadership staff, it shows, you know, especially since we'll be changing fire chiefs, it'll show as these documents are become a part of the history, it'll show with the transition of leadership, transition of board members, you know, things of that nature. And I do find those things of value.
Well, I think that's okay, Ken. I think it's okay to list the names, but let's put a date on there and just say the board members in 2020 are, and that needs to be corrected then, obviously, too, because we have the wrong names on there.
Yeah.
Or outdated names.
And I apologize for missing that one. I'm happy to make those changes.
All right. Hey, now, in terms of any of the, I guess, substantive things in the document, as far as changes, any comments or questions on the on the edits that are found in the document?
I just, I was surprised there was so much that needed to be revised. So thank you for, I imagine that that's why it took so long to get through the document. I'm glad we're reflecting current practices because, I think about the driver operator, different kinds of the probationary period and the different kinds of things that have been changed. And, obviously it's important for us to have that alignment with the collective bargaining unit and then also have, legal, requirements that are in here. There are a lot of changes. There's the red line copy is pretty intense. But so thank you for doing this work. And I think it's, it's important to have this right and to reflect our current practices. And so I don't really have, in looking through the language, it all seems like it reads much better in the areas that were maybe a little more clunky and there again with things, the substantive changes like the probationary period and the I'm going through the document and it's not a small task to have gone through all the redlining that's happened, but hopefully in 3 years it'll be easier to do this. So I feel like maybe we've done a lot of work in the past 3 years that we had to do some. But yeah, the drug testing, I guess, the performance development, the intergovernmental agreement, and all the legal updates. I think that that's just work that had to be done, and so I don't have any specific changes, and I'd be ready to adopt this document today.
All right.
Kristen, I don't know if it's helpful. I apologize for the interruption, but there were a lot of changes that came at the state level as well, and we're still watching those changes unfold. 2021 is likely going to bring additional changes that may require further review of this document and bringing it to the board for some revision. But the intent is to just keep on top of those things, and really an opportunity with the collective bargaining agreement negotiations to kind of coordinate the timing of that. So we can do it hopefully at one time with the board.
And Kristen, I also want to point out how much I appreciate Janet having joined our team and bringing her expertise in HR issues. So, she and Greg and I spent a lot of time on this document, but really it was her expertise in HR that has helped us to identify some of these bigger issues and make some changes. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to mention is I like the anti-discrimination clause, and I don't know if that was just something that that we were required to adopt, but I do like that that includes more protected classes, and that I like that that's reflected in the document, because as we talk about sort of wanting to make sure that we're hiring for a diverse group of folks. I think that that's really important language to have in the document.
I would like to add my thanks to Janet, because this is so detailed and so comprehensive that it's great to have an expert on the job here. I do have some questions. What's the rationale behind doing away with drug testing for non-safety sensitive positions?
That's been an interesting one to watch, and it's coming through some of the legal action that's been brought forward in other areas, and the nexus between conducting drug testing because of the property nature of body fluids that are used for testing. So it's a complicated topic, one that our legal team has reviewed for us, and their recommendation is that we continue to make that connection between the safety sensitive nature of these jobs. What's interesting at the PFA is that we really have not identified positions that would not fall into that category. And the reason is that our legal staff and my understanding of this, driving can be included as a safety sensitive function, regardless of the amount of time that someone might drive or the kind of vehicle that someone might be driving. So the staff at the PFA, support staff, administrative staff do drive for PFA. So we're not anticipating that we would really have any changes in practice related to drug testing, but just the importance of showing that connection between those roles as safety sensitive.
Well, do we have a definition, Janet, of who's safety sensitive and who isn't? That's hard for me
Yes.
to imagine anybody that isn't, to be honest with you, but
And that, I think you're exactly right. So, you know, there may be a very rare position at the PFA. We don't currently have one identified that would not drive for the PFA. So currently our staff would be subjected to drug testing as our policy describes. And we do have that, that definition.
okay.
All right. Other questions or comments? You know, and I
Yeah.
do, oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, you go ahead. I've got a few more, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'll just, nothing substantive other than I concur with the idea that with all the work that was done at this stage, that you know, future revisions will be easier to kind of stay on top of changes that come from the, you know, state level, and then moving forward, you know, since our legal staff, our legal advisor council has been, you know, involved in this process, you know, that gives a great deal of assurance that everything is the way it should be, from incorporating those concepts. Dave, go ahead.
Hey, Dave. Dave, this is Darren. Can I just add something to your prior point?
Sure.
It's I know it's hard to believe, and I've struggled with this as well, and we've made sort of corresponding changes at the city, both in terms of pre-employment drug screening, and then, I mean, anyone who is involved in an accident needs to undergo, or some, you know, some situation that will in a mandatory way go get a screening. Pre-employment is, and also secure safety sensitive positions are a tricky space these days. In fact, I'm an advocate for all new employees getting a pre-employment drug testing, and then you know, random testing. But the courts and state law have changed. I think it's mostly through the courts, Janet, but it's changed dramatically. And so I'll say what you're expressing here is very similar to what I've been expressing over the last, really, as we've seen change in this space over the last, you know, couple of years in very recent terms. But we've changed our policies as well at the city. I think I could argue that every position in the city is safety sensitive, but the courts wouldn't necessarily agree. And a driver's license isn't always the catch-all. So, you know, and then since I'm unmuted, I'll say, Janet, and to the team, I really appreciate the work. As Kristen said, this space is so dynamic right now, whether it's around discrimination, Kristen, as you mentioned, which in some cases, some of this stuff can be voluntary, but is the right thing if we want to recruit and retain the best and brightest, then we're going to need to be very attentive to these things. But Janet, thank you for providing the red line version, because sometimes I get these amendments where they're, you know, here's new proposed and here's old. And I mean, it's such radical change these days, but I appreciate it. It looks like a ton. And I think it's mostly, you know, 3 years in this space is a long time. And also it's been changing at such an amazing pace. You know, maybe what you might want to do is say, you know, for accreditation, we have a 3-year review, but maybe once a year, you just sort of update on what are, to the board, just what are some of the emerging things that you're seeing, and how it affects, you know, us as an employer. 3 years is just a long time. And Janet, don't get me wrong, I'm not wanting to micromanage that in any way, but you know, we're in a dynamic time right now, and for the board to understand the impacts of those might be beneficial. But Dave, I just wanted to tell you, you and I are totally aligned, and between our HR professionals and our attorneys, absolutely think this is the right thing, the right direction to go.
Okay, thanks. Hey, can I ask a couple more questions?
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Janet, we have, there's a discussion in there, and I don't have the document in front of me, but on page 53, we talk about accommodations. And it reminds me, and I don't know how we deal with this, and maybe I missed it, but there are certain job qualifications, and particularly for firefighters, where we are unable to make accommodation. And I'm thinking of, like, they need to speak English, need to be able to walk, run, stand, lift 50 pounds, etc., or maybe more than 50 pounds. You have to be able to hear, that kind of thing. Do we have a specific job requirement document somewhere that covers all of that, or how do we manage that?
Sure. So Dave, the PFA maintains job descriptions for all of our positions, and
Okay.
job descriptions include the essential duties of the position as well as the physical demands of the job. So they're spelled out in job descriptions, which are also reviewed periodically.
All right.
More importantly, and what I think is the basis for this change, is that we adhere to a very prescribed process through the Americans with Disabilities Act when questions come up about someone's physical ability to perform the essential functions of their job. And that process is well defined and can be easily followed to include information related to those physical demands, information from a physician who's able to assess an individual's ability to perform those essential duties. And then we go through what they describe as an interactive process to help understand if the PFA can do anything to support that individual in doing their job. So it's also one of those very detailed pieces of legislation, but with such a great intent and a good outcome for many in situations where they may be facing some restrictions or medical situations that cause them to look at their job in a different way.
Okay. All right. So one last question. As I'm reading through this, I'm wondering about smoking and vaping on the job. Is that covered somewhere? I don't recall seeing it in the rules and regs, but.
Dave, that is, it's in our personnel policies and procedures
Okay.
by order of the chief. So it's not in this particular document, but it is something that the chief requires, that there is no smoking or other tobacco use on PFA property. So even though it's not in this document, it is a policy of the organization.
Okay. I'm done, Ken.
All righty. Thank
All
you, Dave. No, appreciate it. Thank you for your due diligence there. Any other questions or comments? If not, if everybody's comfortable with what is before us, we could even entertain a motion to approve the updated version of the employees' rules and regulations as presented.
And I'm sorry, I want to raise one other issue before we maybe do a
Okay.
motion. But and Tom, a question for you. I know Mike is frequently asking about board involvement in the rules and regs. And I don't know whether he provided any input to you or to you, Janet or Ann, but I'd sure like to see him be able to vote in the affirmative on this, because he's always raising it as an issue. And did he give any input to you, Tom, or anything, or?
No, Mike and I, we had a brief discussion about this last week, and He didn't have any input. We met before the packet had come out, but I told him that was coming on that would be at this meeting, was the rules and regs. And he and I have talked about that before, about his emphasis on this involvement, but he did not give any input.
Okay, well, what's your feeling about going ahead with the approval on this without Mike involved?
That's up to you guys. That's a board call.
I'm not sure, Dave.
I've been at this long enough to know not to cross that line. That's up to you.
Dave, I've served a long time on the board. Remind me what I'm decode for me what you just said your concern about Mike is, please, because I'm not sure.
Mike continually raises, every time you mention rules and regs, and he will make a comment like, well, now the board's going to be involved in that. Is that right? You know, that kind of thing. And Tom, I think you can verify that he continually expresses an interest in the rules and regs and the requirement that the board be involved.
Well, and that's right, Dave. Thank you for the reminder. And that's where I typically, probably for the last 15 years, have said only at the appropriate level. I believe these rules and regulations are for the management of the Poudre Fire Authority. And I actually had that question of myself earlier. You know, I know at the city administrative policies and personnel policies are really left to the city manager. So I tend to think that those operating policies and procedures and administrative things are really ultimately, you know, should be left to the chief. So thank you for the reminder, because I think I always I say to Mike, you know, we're the board, we're not the administration, and for me, I need to be confident that the rules and procedures and policies are in place. But so
well, I agree with you. I think that that's right. But on the other hand, why does the board have to approve them then? You know, and I don't know if that's a good requirement or not.
You know, I think
you have it down as an approval item.
Yeah, and I think actually these, you know, this particular document, you know, does reflect more, you know, board policy and affirmation, opposed to, you know, probably the personnel document from my understanding. And so, you know, so while they're, you know, implemented by the, you know, administration and, you know, and leadership, they do, you know, reflect the, you know, endorsement of the, you know, of the board, because there are other documents that are more administrative in nature only that the board doesn't necessarily improve. So this is our one opportunity to have feedback on some of these issues.
I'm good with that too, Ken. I'll let Mike know that I argued with him even though he wasn't even here.
I argued with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Say, you know, we'll tell him he was absent but not forsaken, or no, not
forgotten.
Not forgotten. There we go. I was looking for the verbiage there, Dave. Thank you.
Okay. That
his perspective was duly shared and noted based on previous issue comments on this issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe we could say if he has you know, the thing is, we will be, as, you know, Janet mentioned, there may be some legislation, there may be some need to present some modifications even over the next year or so, depending on what happens out on the state level. And so there'll be some ongoing opportunities for him to have feedback and raise questions or give input.
Well, presumably he saw the pack. I mean, I guess I missed where he was today, but you know, I feel like, you know, we all know as board members that we get the packet in advance, and if we're not going to be at a meeting, that we would, you know, either send our comments along to
Yeah.
Tom or Ann or someone, or to one of the other board members. So I would presume that he didn't have anything that was too substantive to change, or he would have let us know. So,
Yeah,
but I appreciate the discussion. I'm sure he would appreciate being talked about.
that's. We'll note that in the minutes. No, we'll note that. All right. Is there a motion, concerning agenda item number 7?
I'll make a motion that we approve the modified employee rules and regulations.
All right.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved in second to approve the modified employee rules and regulations as presented with thanks to Janet and Ann and our attorney in terms of job well done. If there are no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Darren, did you vote or are you abstaining?
No, I
Okay, all right. So that passes and is so ordered. And, with that, we can, move on to briefing papers and business. And the big kind of item here is, at this point, I'm going to have the chief give an update on our fires and where we're at in terms of that and the impact of this snow that fortunately came sooner than later, and any implications of that. So Chief DeMint, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Ken. And first, before I jump into that, I really want to thank Janet for the heavy lift and for the assistance in the heavy lift of getting through the rules and regs and the work we've done with Local 1945 and the relationship to the CBA and all that. There's a lot of moving parts in that. So it takes a while to build that kind of document. So I'm very appreciative of what they've done. So thank you, Ann and Janet. Moving into the to the complex of the 2 fires that we have that have impacted Larimer County. On the Cameron Peak fire, as you know, about a week and a half ago, it moved into our district with a spot fire that happened up on Otter Drive, which is in Buckskin Heights, which is just directly outside of our jurisdiction. And basically it's the top of, it's the western ridge of Redstone Canyon, and a spot fire laid in there for a couple of days. A lot of work was done on that spot fire. Wind came up on that Saturday. It blew through Otter Drive and down into Redstone Canyon. We lost several structures in there. We lost one structure in Redstone Canyon, which was actually in Loveland's jurisdiction. But our forces were in there with forces from the incident management team. We had battalion chiefs in there, and we even had volunteers who were working to save their own homes, as well as their neighbors' homes. And it wasn't like, let's save my home now. It was in the order of priority, and it was quite a fight, because many of you have probably seen the video from the Division of Fire Prevention and Control with the wind, but the winds were blowing 70 miles an hour that day, which makes it virtually impossible to be in front of the fire. But I had the pleasure of being with Chief Williams, as well as Captain Hill, who was the safety officer, and watch our crews and their efforts to save properties. And our goal was not only to save the properties that were in the PFA's jurisdiction, but also to hold that fire onto the west side of County Road 27E, which is the Redstone Canyon Road, because anything that got past that could have the potential to run into further areas of PFA's jurisdiction and even be more visible or encroach into more city lands. So that was the valiant effort that they did, and they held it there. They're into that Saturday night. They did some burning operations to build that line. As the week progressed after that, dozers came in, hand crews came in, a lot of work was done where And the thing to understand is even a small juniper tree like we saw up in there, fire will embed itself down into the root system. And that's what's happening right now. There are roots up there holding the heat of this fire under the snow. And until we get repetition of another snowstorm and another snowstorm, we're still going to have the risk of that of another wind event causing some trouble. So our crews are up there, cold trailing is what we call it. They actually take their glove off and they feel to make sure that it's cold in areas where we've had hot spots. And that's not glamorous. It's not glamorous when they're digging in the mud and well, now it's mud. At the time, it's just digging in the dirt to get that extinguished. And then when the East Troublesome fire came over the Continental Divide, there have been a lot of times through this that we've learned to never say never, using the word highly unlikely. In fact, even when the East Troublesome fire was burning into ridges made of rocks, I even got to where I was saying it's highly unlikely that rocks would burn. It's been that kind of fire season. But as it came over the Continental Divide and came down to Fern Creek drainage, an incredible stand was made on this last Saturday during the day, early morning hours and into the day, and PFA was part of that, and held the fire into those meadows of Moraine Park and Beaver Meadows. My understanding, there were some park structures lost, but the fire never left the park. And I will say this publicly, those crews up there, and our crew was part of it, I truly believe, I didn't see it. I stayed here in case things changed in our own jurisdiction, but those crews saved Estes Park that day, and very, very grateful for their work. It was, again, another incredibly windy day that was pushing on them. We had a couple of battalion chiefs and one crew. We had other crews on standby to go. Chief Vandervelde was in communication with their operations chief of Estes Park. We offered up that help early on to ensure that their community was protected. We sent a crew up on Thursday. They stayed up into Friday, came back, and then we went right back up Saturday morning when that wind event came through. Fortunately, the snow did come. It's resting on all parts of the fire, varying all the way from 4 inches to 2 feet, depending on which fire it is and what part of the fire, and some extremely cold temperatures, but we still know that the potential of some of that heat is lying in those roots. And so that is not going to cause the incident management team to pack up and go home. They'll continue to build lines around these fires until they have a line around all of them that they feel safe with, that no fire is going to jump out of the interior of those lines. So work is still being done. They gave the crews a reprieve yesterday, gave them a day off. So some of these crews have been working tirelessly. The incident management team is changing out yesterday and today, which is a good thing, because the last times they've changed is when the fires are up and running. And that's at least on the Cameron Peak fire. That the Wednesday, when that spot fire formed up in Redstone Canyon, they were doing an incident management team change during that, and the run that the Troublesome fire made happened during a team transition. And that's just kind of, they're trained and they practice that's how they take over an incident. So it just makes it even tougher for everybody's assignment. And I think they've done really well with the conditions that we have. If you look at the conditions we're dealing with, we've not had significant moisture on any of these areas, including the western slope and the Front Range here. We've not had significant moisture since June. So the green trees, and I can tell you for sure from witnessing it, the green trees are burning just as readily, if not even more so, than the beetle kill trees. So that's why we're very grateful for the snowstorm we got. And now if we can get some repetition in those, in a continued wetting event and in a change into winter. However, there's forecast, looking at the Red Feather Lakes forecast into the end of next week, it's forecasted to get back up into the 50s and possibly even the 60s at 9,000 feet. So we're not out of the woods yet, but this is a great event to help turn the corner and get some line built. So I really want to thank our operations division. Our battalion chiefs came together. They worked tirelessly up on Redstone Canyon. They're a great example of how the PFA works. Is up on the Redstone Canyon event and Otter Drive. We had 2 battalion chiefs up there who were kind of overseeing the entire operation, but we had a task force leader who's Doug McGraw. Doug's not he's not a chief officer, he's not a captain, he's a firefighter, but he had the appropriate knowledge, skills, and abilities. And no one in the organization said, hey, wait a minute, he doesn't have the right stuff on his collar. Took the best person, and that's the culture of this organization. We put the best person in the best position at the time to achieve the best results. And I was very proud to watch that and watch Doug lead those crews on the day that I was up there, and watch our battalion chiefs work together with folks from the incident management team, work with the folks from the sheriff's department, work with the folks from Loveland Fire and other fire departments, because it was a dangerous operation. But they held fire onto the west side of 27. They held fire out of Estes Park. So strong work by our folks. So I couldn't be more grateful for what they've done. And right now, I think I say with hope and prayer that we are at a turning point to where we can get lines built around these fires to hold them in check when the weather changes back, is what we're anticipating. Any questions on that?
All right, thank you, Chief. Yeah, any questions, comments?
I have one other thing I'd like to add is in the briefing papers. Once again, the PFA has been recognized for the distinguished budget presentation, and just got to give kudos out to Kirsten for all her work that she's done. I don't know how many of these, Kirsten, how many of those have we got now?
I think that's 21.
21 consecutive outstanding budget presentations. That aligns, again, it's not about the award, it's about the award driving us to do things right and to be transparent and provide the things that government should do in its budgeting and financial processes. And that ties right back in. GFOA ties right back into the accreditation process. So congratulations to Kirsten and her staff and all the work they do, along with Ann, to make sure our budget has that transparency and that process.
Can I have a comment really quick? I just thank you, Chief, for the updates. And I mean, I think, I felt like we've had continual updates from you about what's going on with the both fires, multiple fires. And so I'm just, really just want to pass on my thanks to everyone that's been working on this. I know that there's been so much concern in the community, and as we see, our fellow neighbors and friends have to evacuate and potentially lose their homes, and seeing some of the conditions that firefighters are having to deal with on a daily basis, that just, look like scenes from, Dante's Inferno kind of, just horrific, hellish kind of conditions. Just want to pass on my gratitude to you for your leadership, and everybody my dog's leaving the room. He doesn't want to hear this. He's like, oh, here she's going to go off again. But I just really want to convey my thanks, because it's and gratitude for just keeping us informed, keeping people calm, keeping just keeping the fire at bay from our communities, working to protect lives and structures. And so please pass on our thanks to everyone involved as you interact with them, and let them know that we can't even express our gratitude for the work that's been done. And we're just thankful that we have so many dedicated folks, and so, people that are just willing to give just everything that they have in their entire being to doing this. And, I don't even, as I sit here in my comfortable house and not really have to worry very much except about smoke in the air, I truly don't know what it's like. And so, but from what I've seen, it's pretty hard, and I can't convey my thanks enough. So thank you.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to look outside the window and see those azure blue skies that we know are there.
Yeah, Ken, if I can just add, and I think Kristen said it really well, but Chief, I've been able to spend, or we've spent a lot of time together. And I think that to the communications, I think you've, as always, you've been a great communicator. You've been available for me as I've gotten questions from the mayor and council members and various other partners and community members. I appreciate what's been going on in social media and some of just the personal touch that you add as well. So I won't belabor it, but what stands out for me, other than all the technical work and that's going back there, is your commitment to communications and information flow and accessibility. And I'm not sure I've written a single word about my assessment of the fire. Those have been coming from you to the mayor and city council and the community members. So I appreciate it.
Thank
And
you,
you've just
Darren.
been available the whole time.
And all right, yeah, good job, Chief, on your oversight and the reports and the updates. And we certainly trust that progress will continue to be made, and that if nothing else, this this snow will certainly serve as a turning point moving forward in the efforts of, I think you said, was it like now 3,000? I mean, total in Colorado, is it, I say in Colorado, or at least in our area, 3,000, is it 3,000 firefighters? How many? Oops, you're muted, Tom. Tom, you're on mute.
There we go.
There you go.
The last count of the two fires together was about 3,000 firefighters of the East Troublesome and the Cameron Peak. And there's at one point we had 4 incident management teams operating in Larimer County, 4 nationally assigned national incident management teams operating between the fires in Boulder County and these two. And actually, you could actually include that slop over from the Mullen fire in Wyoming. So yeah, there's about 3,000 people assigned. I'm sure the snow has probably caused some demobilization of a lot of resources to California and other places that are now suffering some of that. But they definitely keep the right resources to get the job done.
All right. If any other comments on briefing papers, other business or correspondence, if not, we're going to move to our motion for executive session.
Ken, I just want to give you a quick heads up on how we're going to do this executive session. I have sent each of the board members and the staff members who are involved in this a separate Zoom appointment in your email, and you'll have received that just a few minutes ago. So you guys will leave this meeting and then join that other meeting. And then we can come back if we'll keep the public meeting open in case the board wants to come back and do anything, make a motion on anything, and also to come back and adjourn. So that's how we're going to handle moving to the executive session.
Okay, thank you, Ann, for that additional information. I was wondering about that protocol there.
So Ann, should we stay in this meeting? Should we just mute our cameras and our mics and stay in this meeting, or do you want us to rejoin this meeting?
You're muted, Ann.
And you're muted there.
I don't think you can be in 2 Zoom meetings at the same time. I think you can only be in one.
Okay.
All right, so we'll leave this one, join the other one, and then rejoin this one to adjourn. And so with with that, I would move that we adjourn this meeting to an executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting not adjourn this meeting, but to what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry.
Go into executive
Yeah,
session.
to go into executive session. And I guess maybe adjourn is that still appropriate? But
You can just say pause, Ken.
recess. I guess to recess this meeting, to put this meeting in recess in order to go into executive session. Maybe that's what I was looking for. So I think there was a second. I think Dave seconded that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, and so we will leave this meeting to log on to the executive session Zoom meeting, and then we'll return here for any business or to adjourn. Thank you.
So that recording I sent to the cloud. So I'll get a message back that says where that is, right?
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
We just need to keep that for 90 days.
Okay.
Looks like the only one we're missing is Ken.
Yeah. Did we lose everybody else from the, oh no, we still have people from the,
We have a few, yeah.
okay.
We'll just send Ken an invite real quick in case he's
Okay.
having a hard time finding it. Okay.
So we're getting ready to do our firefighter interviews in a couple of days, and we're doing those by Zoom. So that's kind of scary and technology wise, but we seem to be able to make most things work at some point.
We did our chief judge interviews all by Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was, at first you feel like that there's going to be some kind of, but I think it worked well. So.
Yeah.
We're doing the same with the deputy and having various community forums and council forums, but it is hard, right? I mean, you want to, so we're probably going to have the final candidate, obviously face to face that, we can,
Yeah.
but yeah, the judge, and that is something that several of the folks responded to as well. Under COVID, here's how they've done business differently. I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
To reiterate, maybe when we meet with them, what learnings as a result of COVID have you, what have you learned?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. We are back in our regular session, so we'll call the regular meeting for the PFA board for October 27th back into order. Excuse me. I think we have one item we'd like to make a motion on coming out of executive session, and that's related to approving additional vacation carryover hours for Chief Tom Dement in line with what has been done for other personnel in the amount of of 60 hours of unused vacation leave. So is there any discussion or a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve 60 hours of vacation carryover for Chief Tom Dement. And again, this is in line with what is provided other firefighters and personnel, so very much within the standard protocol that has been established by administrative policy. Any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, Chair Summers, if I can just add, maybe for people who don't have the context, and this is something that the city has done as well, as allowed city employees to carry over some additional hours. It's because of the additional work that's occurred related to COVID and fires and so forth. This is 2021 has been a very challenging year for globally for employees. And we've made some changes at the city. Chief Dement has made some changes for the workforce. And I think this is in response to that.
Yeah, no, and that's good. It's hard for a fire chief to say, you know, I know we're having the largest fire in Colorado history, but you know, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, so have fun. You know, so so obviously there's a you know, reasonable issue here, and you know, Chief, I'm not sure if I should, you know, share the fact that actually the chief is going to be losing a significant number of hours, I think, in this process anyway. And so we, I don't know, I just was asking you permission while I was sharing, but, you know, but anyway, we appreciate your dedication and service and leadership to PFA. All right, with that, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I was on mute. Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously and is so ordered. Is there any other business to be brought before the PFA board here on this 27th of October?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, seeing none, we thank staff and board members for their attendance, and we are adjourned. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ken. Good meeting.
Thank you all.
Hey, you know what? I forgot to mention, you know, we will be, the PFA board will be interviewing search firms on Friday, November 6th. And so just as, and I believe that will also be called as a special meeting so we can transact any business that may arise from those interviews. And Chair Tom will be back and ready and raring to go. So thank you for the opportunity today and have a good day.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.